Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankara-Acharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jnananandamayan Devam Nirmalasphatiकाकृतिम् Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe. Om Shri Hayagrivaya Namaha. Om Shri Vallabha Sameta Shri Mahaganadhipataye Namaha. So now we are going into a new topic. Anubhuter-nityatva-upapattih. So the Anubhava or Anubhuti, which is Atma Swarupa, is Nitya because Atma itself is Nitya. So here there is a confusion because the Vishishtadvaitins and Ramanuja in particular, they take the Vritti Jnanam as Anubhava. Of course, if you take the Vritti Jnanam as the Anubhava, then it will have a beginning and an end, correct? Every Vritti has a start and an end. Therefore, they say that Anubhava is not Nitya. Okay. And they think that by saying that they have somehow disproved whatever we are saying. So that's why Vellankunda Ramaraya Kavi is taking up this point here. So he is first presenting the Akshepa of Ramanuja. He says, Nanu na anubhavaha nityaha. So anubhavaha na nityaha. Anubhava cannot be eternal or beyond time. How? Why? Because anubhava pragabhavasya satvat. Anubhava as a pragabhava. Pragabhava means prior non-existence. So it doesn't exist before. Like even a pot doesn't exist before it is created. And it doesn't exist after it is destroyed. That is called pradvamsa bhava. So pragabhava and then srishti, sthiti. Then we say pradvamsa. Destruction. After that again pradvamsa bhava is there. Like this the Nayayikas also talk about this pragabhava, pradvamsa bhava, anyonya bhava, and all these different kinds of abhava also they talk about in fact. So anubhava as a pragabhava, therefore what tasya anubhave naiva grahanaditi ramanujaha. And how do you know that anubhava as a pragabhava? That anubhava itself is there, he is saying. Okay, there is anubhava of the anubhava pragabhava. This is where Villangoda doesn't accept that. Okay, he takes up this point and he beautifully argues in this section. We'll see that. So he says, Tasya cha anubhave naiva grahanat. Means the anubhava itself experiences its own pragabhava. Okay, or it cognizes more than saying experiences. Grahanat means it is cognizing. The anubhava itself cognizes its own prior non-existence. Therefore, anubhava is not nitya. That's what Ramanuja is saying. Iti Ramanujaha. And he says tan mandam. That's not very bright argument. Why? So now we ask a question here. Kim yasya kasyapi vastunaha yena kenapi grihyamanaha pragabhavaha asti iti tvaya uchyate uta agrihyamanaha api. So if you say that there is a pragabhava of some vastu, correct? That pragabhava of that vastu, did you cognize it and say it is there? Or without cognizing itself you are saying that? That is a question. Now without cognizing, nobody can say something is there. So straight away he says, na dvitiyaha agrihyamanasya pragabhavasya astitve ishvaradehe api pragabhavaha sya. So if you say that pragabhava is there without even cognizing it, then you have to say even Ishvara has pragabhava, even though Ishvara is said to be nitya. Okay. But you can say that Ishvara also will have Pragabhava because even without cognizing it or knowing it, if I claim that, you can claim anything. But let us say you say I am saying it after cognizing it. Adye, if you say that I am telling it because I have grahanam of that, correct? Then what adye kim swapragabhavaha svena iva grihyate uta anyena. Now another question. The pragabhava of something, is it cognized by itself or by somebody else? No, na adyaha. It cannot be by itself. Why? Putra pragabhavasya pitra eva grihyamanatvam na putrena iti darshana. See, the son's prior non-existence cannot be cognized by son, okay? At least directly as a perception, correct? But others can say, father can say, I was there before you were born, and now I am there. Therefore, I have seen your prior non-existence. Of course, those things are all based on the body as an upadhi that we'll see later. But at least in Vyavahara, Putra cannot say that I have directly cognized my own prior non-existence. It is nonsensical. Okay. Only the father can say that, who is other than the son. So, what do we say? Swapragabhava grahana samaye swasya sattve swapragabhava yoga. So, why are we saying? Because if while cognizing your own prior non-existence, if you are there, then you are there already, correct? Then how can you say that I have cognized my non-existence? Being existent, you cannot cognize your own non-existence. That is contradictory. Therefore, what swasya asatve grahana yoga. And if you are not there and still say I cognize myself, also is not correct, because if you are not there, you cannot cognize anything. So this cognizing one's own prior non-existence is not possible. Okay, and if you say that no, it is cognized by somebody else, Dvitiye ishtaha eva. Dvitiye, if you say no, others only cognize someone's prior non-existence, that is desirous for us. Okay, but even that is not possible in the case of anubhava. That's what we are going to point out. So he's saying tattu prakrite na sambhavati. In the case of anubhava, somebody else cognize the anubhava pragabhava, one cannot say. Why? Because he's saying anubhava danyasya jadatvena anubhava pragabhava grahana yoga. So anything other than this anubhava chaitanya is all jada, are all anatma, and jada cannot cognize anything. So there is no other sentient entity other than anubhava to cognize the prior non-existence of anubhava. Then anubhava itself also cannot cognize it. Therefore, anubhava is nitya. This is what we are driving at. Okay. So, but then once we say this, what Purva Bhakti is coming, he says, Nacha anubhava pragabhavaha atmana grihyate iti vachyam. So they are saying anubhava pragabhavaha atmana grihyate. Why can't we say the atma is cognizing the pragabhava of anubhava? So maybe in their siddhanta, anubhava is different from atma, because again they are taking anubhava as vritti jnana. Okay, that is where the problem is coming. So anubhava pragabhava, why can't we say that it is cognized by the atma? You cannot say that. Why? Atmanaha eva anubhavatvat iti. Atma and Anubhava are not two different things. To say that Anubhava's prior non-existence is cognized by Atma. Atma and Anubhava are one and the same. Atma is Anubhuti Swarupa. Therefore, so you cannot say that. Then what further? Nanu Anubhava Pragabhavam Anubhavaha na grinhati iti kim tvaya क्वचित् दृष्टम उच्यते. Okay, क्वचित् दृष्टम उत न. Okay, now the Purva Bakshi is trying to put us in a corner. So they are asking a question and trying to show that both ways we cannot answer. So he is asking, you are saying Anubhava Pragabhava, okay, it is not cognized by Anubhava. How are you saying that? That Anubhava Pragabhava is not cognized by the Anubhava itself, you are saying after experiencing it or not? He is asking. Okay. If you say that I have experienced the Anubhava Pragabhava, not cognizing Anubhava, Adye, by that only you accept that Anubhava Pragabhava is there. Okay. Why? Because this Anubhava Pragabhava, if you are that Anubhava did not cognize it, if you say, correct, that Anubhava is not cognizing something because it was not there. Therefore, that itself will establish the Anubhava Pragabhava. You understand what they are saying? Because if Anubhava was always there, they are saying it should have. It is a very stupid argument, but what they are trying to implicate is, if you say that I have seen that Anubhava did not see its own Pragabhava, means that itself establishes the Anubhava's Pragabhava, correct? According to their logic. Because Anubhava was not there to see its own Pragabhava, therefore Anubhava did not exist, it will establish the Pragabhava. So he says, Tasmadeva Tava Darshanat Anubhava Pragabhava Siddhihi. Otherwise, if you say you are saying it without seeing it, then how can you say something without cognizing it? So Dvitiye Katham Adrishtarthasya Grahyatvam. So if you say the second, then you are also you are saying something like hair's horn is there, correct? So that's what they are saying. Tata sati adrishtam shashashringamapi grahyam syaditi chet. So if you are saying without cognizing it, then it is as good as saying that hair's horn also is there, okay, which you can never cognize. So like this, if you raise an objection, iti chet ma evam, it is not in this manner. Why? Okay, our answer is putra pragabhavam putro na grinhati iti etanmaya drishtam तेन स्वप्रागभावं स्वं न गृह्णाति इति व्याप्ति ज्ञानं मम जातं ततः ब्रवीमि अनुभव प्रागभावम अनुभवो न गृह्णाति इति. Okay, see, if you say anubhava pragabhava is cognized by perception, then only there is a problem. We are not claiming that. So what we are saying is putra pragabhava cannot be seen by putra. So from this we have a vyapti, correct? Invariable concomitance. The Vyapti Jnanam is there, so that based on that we can do inference. So what is the Vyapti here? Swapragabhavam Swa na Grinhati. From this we generalize saying that one's own prior non-existence cannot be cognized by oneself. That is the Vyapti. And based on this Vyapti we say that Anubhava cannot cognize its own Pragabhava. So what is the problem in this? Okay. So it is by Anumana, not by Pratyaksha. Okay. So it is only with reference to cognition. It does not, from this you cannot extend it and say that since Anubhava did not cognize its own prior non-existence, it should not have been there at that time, etc. You cannot extrapolate it like that. That's not correct. That's not logical also. So we are saying we say this based on this Anumana. So once we say this, what he is saying, Nanu putra pragabhavam putro ma grinhatu kim tena putra pragabhavasya siddhihi tata anubhava pragabhavam anubhavo ma grinhatu nama na tavata anubhava pragabhava asiddhihi iti chet. Okay, now they are changing track. He is saying, let putra need not cognize his own prior non-existence. But from that it is not established that Putra's Pragabhava is not there, correct? There is no asiddhi of Putra Pragabhava because somebody else has seen it and they have now established it. So there is a siddhi. But similarly, he is saying Anubhava Pragabhava need not be known by Anubhava itself. Okay? Anubhava Pragabhavam Anubhavo Ma Grinat. Let the Anubhava need not cognize it. But still what? Na tavata Anubhava Pragabhava siddhi. By that alone, you cannot say that Anubhava Pragabhava is not there. Like this, he is arguing now. Okay? Iti ched ma evam. You cannot say that. Why? Because Putra Pragabhavam Pita Grinati iti asti tat siddhi. So how does the Putra Pragabhava get established? Because somebody else, Anyena, correct? This is the point we already raised. But in the case of Anubhava, Anya itself is not there, so it cannot be established. That's what we are arguing, correct? So the Putra Pragabhava, Putra did not cognize, that is fine. But somebody else cognized and established it. So there is a Siddhi. But for Anubhava, you cannot say that. Why he is saying, Na evam Anubhava Pragabhavam Kopi Grinhati iti, but nobody cognizes the Pragabhava of Anubhava. Therefore, the Asiddhi is there. So once we say this, what again they come back? Why? Nanu Putra Pragabhavam Putro api Grinhati Naham Utpattehe Pragasam iti Putraha hi Pratyeti Utpattehe Prag Ghatasya Asatva Darshanat Lingaditi Chet. Okay, now what you are saying that the Putra does not cognize his own prior non-existence, we don't accept. Like this, the Purvapakshi is saying. Why? Because the Putra Pragabhava, Putra also says that I did not exist. I was born on so and so date. Before this date, I was not there. Like even a pot also is born. I am also born. Whatever is born does not exist before its birth. This Vyapti, whatever you said, in fact, we only told that Anumana, correct? So now he is saying using the same Anumana, Putra himself cognizes his own prior non-existence. Okay? Because there is a Linga. Linga is the Vyapti, correct? Similarly, for Anubhava also, you can say Anubhava cognizes its own prior non-existence using the same kind of Linga. Why can't we say this? Why can't this Anubhava, why can't this Anumana be applied to Anubhava also? This is the question, okay? Anubhava can apply this Anumana to itself and arrive at the cognition that I was not there before. Okay, therefore I am not Nitya. Why can't it be like this? Means it cannot be. It is Mayavam. Why? Swapragabhavasya Swapratyaksha Vishayatvam Na iti ityeva Asmabihi Uchyate Swanumana Vishayatvam tu Bhavati eva. So what we are saying is, see, the one's own Pragabhava cannot be directly cognized by oneself. That's what we are saying. Okay, Swapragabhava se Swapratyaksha Vishayatvam we say. It cannot be a pratyaksha or a direct cognition, perception. That's what we are saying. So, pratyaksha vijayam na iti eva asmabhi uchite. That's what we are saying. We are not denying that somebody cannot do anumana of one's own prior non-existence. But that is okay with reference to putra again. That cannot be done for anubhava. That's what we point out now. Okay, but so whatever we are saying with reference to putra, we accept. Putra can do anumana about his own prior non-existence. That is fine. But the same thing cannot be said for anubhava again. Why? Nacha evam anubhavopi pragabhavam anumanena grinhati iti vachyam. So you cannot say anubhava also similarly cognizes its own prior non-existence through anumana. Why? So navachyam. You cannot say that. Why? Anubhavaha स्वसत्तया एव स्वविषयं प्रकाशयति इति त्वया एव उक्तत्वात्. So anubhava, how does it How does it cognize anything? By its own swatas, by its own satta, correct? Anubhava has to be swatasiddha for it to be swaprakasha, correct? Anubhava, this swaprakashatvam is there, okay? So swavishayam prakashayati, it lights up whatever it it cognizes, correct? By its own existence only it has to light it up. Without existing, it cannot light up. So you have said this. So once you talk about the swaprakashatvam and swatasiddhatvam of anubhava, how can you use this anumana here? Because anumana dwara anubhavasya स्वप्रागभाव ग्रहणे स्वसत्या एव इति उक्तं व्याहन्ति. So one's own swatasiddhatvam, by that only, see, let us say you are doing anumana that I must not have been there before my birth. But your birth itself, how can anybody know? For a pot, etc., you can say birth is there. For a body, birth is there. But the same thing cannot be said for this consciousness, because there is nobody who has seen the birth of consciousness. Understand that. So this anumana itself, you cannot do that. If you do this anumana, then you cannot say I am swatasiddha. Correct? Swatasiddhatvam and srishti cannot go together. If you say that by anubhava I have known my prior non-existence and still say I am swatasiddha, I am self-existence, they both are contradictory. Is that clear? Swasattaya eva iti uktam vyahanti. Vyahanti means vyagata. Vyahanti means it is contradiction. It is contradictory. One statement is contradicting the other. You cannot say at the same time I do anumana of my own prior non-existence and also claim that I am self-existent. These two things cannot go together. And self-existence alone can be self-revealing also. Okay, so prakashatvam, swatasiddhatvam, all these things go together. In fact, they also accept it. So he is pointing out tatascha anubhavasya tvad abhimatamapi swayam prakashatvam na siddhyati iti. Okay, in fact, they they have to claim that anubhava is not swaprakasha. That's why. In fact, we argued that only in the previous. So, if but swatasiddhatvam they claim somehow, which is not proper. So, Swayam Prakashatvam is not there for Anubhava. Okay. So, this Swayam Prakashatvam, Swatasiddhatvam and all, if it is there, then this Anumana cannot be done. That is our point here. Okay, once we say this, then they are saying, but Anubhava can cognize the past and the future. Okay. You can bring in memory about the past Anubhavas. Of course, yogis and all can even cognize what is going to happen in future. So they are now taking it as though we are saying that this atita anagata vishayatvam itself cannot be there for anubhava. So taking that, now they are making an objection. So he is saying nanu anubhavaha atitam api vishayam bodhayati atita vastu vishaya pratyakshasyapi yoginaha satva. So for yogis, whatever is past and whatever is in future, everything they see. Trikale Trikala Darshana is there. And for Ishvara also it is there, we have to say, correct? So there are people who can see everything. So Tatacha Swapurva Kalikamapi Pragabhava Anubhavaha Bodhayati iti che. So if you say that past, present, everything can become Vishaya, why cannot for Anubhava, its own prior non-existence, why cannot it become a Vishaya? Okay. You cannot just say that The past, something in the past cannot become the Vishaya for Anubhava. Like this, they are raising a general objection. Okay. So, Pragabhavam Anubhavaha Swapurvakalikamopi Odayati. That's what they are saying. One's own prior non-existence can be cognized by Anubhava, by the Anumana which we said. Means that is also not correct. Iti chet ma evam. Why it's not in this manner? So we are now explaining. What we are saying is na vayam anubhave vartamanameva vastu vishaha bhavati iti brumaha. So we don't say that anubhava can only cognize whatever is there right now in the present. That's not what we are saying. So don't raise a straw man and try to knock it off. Okay. But what do we say? Kim tarhi atitam anagatam cha vishayaha bhavati eva. So Anubhava can reveal whatever is past and whatever is going to come. We are not denying that. Okay, whatever you are saying. And in fact, we accept, correct? Yoginaha sarvajna ishwarasya cha traikalika vastu pratyaksha sambhavat. So for yogis and Ishvara, the vastus in all three periods of time, they can know. Okay, there is a possibility of knowing directly. So that we are not denying. But what we are denying is the pragabhava. Okay, anubhava pragabhava. Pragabhavadikam tu anubhave vishayaha na bhavati iti brumaha. What we are saying is only the anubhava pragabhava or even anubhava's own pradvamsa bhava. Correct? Adipadat, not only the pragabhava. Pradvamsa bhava also one cannot know because you are not even there. Correct? In both cases, prior non-existence and posterior non-existence cannot be known by oneself because one is not even existing at that time. How can you say that one can know that oneself? That is the point. So Adipadat Pradvamsa Abhava also we have to take. Anubhava Praga Bhavadikam tu Anubhave Vishayaha na Bhavati iti Brumaha. That's all we are saying. So don't put up a straw man and try to knock it off. Okay, once we say this what Nanu Mama Guru Upadeshat Purvam Etat Shlokartha Jnanam Nasiditi Anubhave Anubhava Pragabhavaha api Vishayaha Eva iti che. Okay, now they are bringing another point. He is saying, suppose Guru is teaching you something, okay, some shloka. Now, after knowing that shloka, what is your anubhava? That now I know the shloka artha, but I did not know the shloka artha before. Means that shloka artha anubhava was not there before. Shloka artha anubhava is there only now. That shloka artha anubhava was not there before itself. I am now experiencing. Correct. So therefore, we can say that anubhava pragabhava can be a vishaya of anubhava. Why can't we say this? So they are taking this shlokartha and saying about that like this. No, this also is fallacious. Why? It is not correct. It is not possible. Ma evam. Why? Nahi tatra shlokartha jnana pragabhavaha vishayaha kimtu anyasminneva jnane iti. See here, one thing you have to understand. Again, these people are confusing the vritti jnanam with swarupa jnanam. So what Bellangonda is beautifully pointing out here is, in the case of shlokartha jnana also, that vritti jnana itself cannot know its own prior non-existence or posterior non-existence. It is known by some other jnanam. That's what he is pointing out. So it is not that same jnanam is knowing its own uh, ragabhav. It is anyasmin neva jnana. The another jnanam is there. Okay. That is possible for vritti jnana because vritti jnana itself is known by the sakshi and all we say, correct? So that's what he is pointing out here. So evam, in this manner, what shlokartha jnana pragabhavasya jnanantarena grihyamanatva siddhihi. So it is only another vritti only has to know the prior vritti's non-existence. It is jnanantara is there, not that same jnana. So anyena grihnati we accept. Already we said that putra's pragabhava can be known by pita, correct? So like this one jnana's pragabhava or pradvamsa bhava can be known by another jnana. That we are not saying. You are talking about swasya. That is not possible. Okay. So he is saying na evam anubhava pragabhavaha kenapi grihyate yena tatsiddhihi syat. But what we are saying is anubhavas pragabhava cannot be seen by any another anubhava or another jnana, because there is nothing, there is no other anubhava or another jnana. There is only one jnana, particularly when we are talking about the swarupa jnana. Vritti jnana is fine. We also accept that vritti jnana is anitya. We are not talking about that. So he is explaining that vritti jnana pragabhava pradvamsa bhavayoho chaitanyena grihyamanatvat vritti jnanasya anityatvam astu. So we accept vritti jnana is anityam. It is there. Why? Because the chaitanya in the form of sakshi cognizes the vritti jnana pragabhava and pradvamsa bhava also. So vritti jnana is anitya. Any anityatvam itself can only be cognized by something nitya, correct? In fact, this is the main argument we have with Buddhist also. Because Buddhist is saying everything is anitya, everything is maya, kshanika vijnana, they say. But even something is kshanika, to know that there has to be something which is not kshanika, correct? Something which spans to kshanika thing alone can even cognize kshanikatvam itself. So otherwise kshanikatvam cannot be even established. That is the point. So any kind of recollection is possible only if there is an invariable cognizer. Okay. So in this case, Chaitanya being there, Vritti Jnana, for that Pragabhava, Pradvamsa Bhava and all is fine. But Chaitanya Pragabhava, Pradvamsa Bhava tu, na Chaitanyena Vyaghatat, but Chaitanya, the Sakshi itself, cannot see its own Pradvamsa or Pragabhava. That will become contradictory. Why? Also, the Chaitanyantarena Abhava. Also, there is no another Chaitanya to see this. Therefore, what? Ataha na Chaitanyasya Pragabhavadikam Vritti. Therefore, Chaitanya, which is Anubhuti Swarupa, is not having any Pragabhava. It cannot have any Pragabhava. In fact, the Shabda Pramana also says the same thing, correct? Okay. So, no Pramana is there to establish the Pragabhava of Chaitanya. So you cannot claim the same for this. You are confusing Vritti Jnanam and Surupa Jnanam. That is the point. Okay, once we say this, what further he says, Kincha yada putra utpattehe prag aham na asam iti pratyeti devadattadihi tatha naham utpattehe prag asam iti pratyeti na anubhavaha. So, whatever this putra, etc., they putra can do anumana and cognize saying that I was not there before my birth. Okay. So anybody, a putra called Devadatta can do this anumana and cognize one's own non-existence, prior non-existence. Similarly, I was not there before my utpatti, like this. Anubhava cannot do any cognition. Anubhava cannot have any cognition like that. Okay. Anubhava cannot say that I was not there. For that, another Anubhava has to be there. That is also not there. So, therefore, what do we say? Atascha na anubhavasya pragabhavaha. Anubhava cannot have any pragabhava. Also, once we say this, what? No, no. How can you say this? Naham asamiti atma pratyeti eva. Atma hi anubhavaha tavamata iti. So, I was not there. Like this, everybody says. Okay, and I is the Anubhava according to you. So how can you say that this Anubhava does not cognize its own prior non-existence? If you ask anybody, he will say, I was not there before I was born. How can you say that Anubhava cannot say that? Okay, this is their argument based on Laukika Vyavahara. Even that you cannot say. You cannot iti na vachyam. Why? Dehadi tadatmya adhyasa prayuktatva tat pratite. Okay, that pratiti that I was not there before is based on the deha adhyasa. Correct? There is atma adhyasa and the deha. You take the deha as I and you say based on that I was not there. Correct? But deha itself cannot be I. Whatever I know, how can it be I? Whatever is an object of my cognition can never be I. So that is wrong. So this statement that I was not there, etc., it is based on superimposing one's own identity on the dehadi. Therefore, what? Nacha anubhavaha sarvada ahamasam ityapi na pratyeti iti vachyam. Okay, even though you say that it is based on dehadi, sanghata, adhyasa, now the Purva Pakshi comes, Anubhavaha sarvada aham asam ityapi na pratyeti, he says. Anubhava does not experience itself being always there. Also, you cannot say, I will be always there. This kind of a perception also is not there. Therefore, from that itself, you can say that one can infer one's own prior non-existence and one's own posterior non-existence. Because if you ask anybody also, are you going to be there always? They cannot say, I will be there always, correct? So this is the another argument, again based on Laukika Vyavahara. Even that you cannot say. Na vachyam. Why? Sarvada aham asam iti pratyeti eva vidwan atmeti. See, what you are saying is true for Ajnani, but the Jnani perceives as I will always be there only. Sarvada aham asam. I was there always. I am there. I will always be there. This is the cognition of the Jnani. Okay, and that is the that is what the Shastra Pramana also is revealing. Correct. So there is a Vidvat Pratyaksha is there. So you cannot say this as though it is something universal. Okay. Once we say this, what he is saying, Srishte Prag, Ishvaraha Eka Eva Asit, na Jivadikam. Okay, now the Purvapashi is saying, Jiva, etc., was not there before the Srishti, only Ishvara alone was there. Even in Chandogya, it is said correct. Sadeva Somya idam agre asit ekameva advitiyam. Similarly, in fact, here the Purvapakshi is quoting something called Chatushloki Bhagavata. In the Bhagavata, second canto, ninth chapter, there are four verses which Vishnu is teaching Brahma. Okay. Either it is 32, 33, 34, 35 in some books, or it is 33 to 36 in other books. This is called Chatushloki Bhagavata. And in fact, in the tradition, it is said that only these four verses were then taught by Brahmaji to Vyasa, and then he expanded that into the entire Bhagavata Purana and all that. So there is a Chatushloki Bhagavata like this. Traditionally, these four slokas, in fact, you can chant every day also, and that gives you the essence of the entire Bhagavata teaching. Okay, right, it's completely Advaita. I don't know how Dvaitins and others interpret it. Anyway, so in that the first verse, Bhagavan says, Ahameva asam eko gre na anyat yat sadasat param iti. So in this, Bhagavan says, I alone was there initially. There is nothing else other than me, whether Sat or Asat. Sat or Asat here means tangible, intangible, like that we can take. Okay. Okay. So either as Sat or Asat, nothing was there before I alone. So from this you can say that this Anubhava was not there before, Jiva was not there. If you say that, therefore Anubhava should have had Pragabhava. Because Ishvara alone was there, Anubhava was not there. This kind of argument he is making. So even that you can't say. Now Vachyam. Why? Jiveshwarayoho Aikya. Jiva and Ishvara are not two different things. Okay. There is no two different Vastu. To say that Anubhava can have its Pragabhava. Anubhava is in fact Ishvara here or Bhagavan. Okay. In fact, with reference to Jiva also in the Gita, it is clearly said, correct? Ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha na hanyate anyamane sharire dehi nityamavadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata and all that. So even with reference to the Jiva, Jiva does not die even when the body falls, correct? Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinnati naro parani. All that we say. Okay, as though like a torn shirt, Jiva can change the body. So, Jiva also is Ajaha, unborn, Nityaha, Shasvataha, and all these words are used with reference to the Jiva in the Gita. Therefore, the Nityatvam is heard, is revealed by Bhagavan only. Therefore, even Jivas are Nitya, and therefore, and the Jiva Surupa is Anubhava Surupa, and Anubhava cannot have any Pragabhava. So, there is no Pramana to establish the Anityatvam of Anubhava. And therefore you cannot do any anumana. Anubhava itself cannot do any anumana. Sorry, Anubhava itself cannot do any anumana of its own prior non-existence. That is what we are pointing out. Therefore, what tasmad anubhavaha eva pratyaga bhinnam brahmeti na tasya pragabhavadikam nityatva. So, anubhava is not something separate from myself, which is again nitya, and it is Brahman also. Therefore, it cannot have any pragabhava, pradyamsa abhava. It is nitya. So this way, Ramanuja's contention is out. Okay, that Anubhava is Anitya and it can experience its own Pragabhava, that is gone. Now he takes up Shruta Prakashikakara also says something. He says, Atra Shruta Prakashikakaraha Pratyavatishtate Nanu Vrindravyasya Nityatvepi Ghatatwadi Avastham Avastha Vrindravyasya Anityattvavate ज्ञान आख्य द्रव्यस्य नित्यत्वेपि स्मृतित्व अनुभूतित्वादि अवस्थज्ञानस्य अनित्यत्वम् एव ईदृश अनित्यत्वज्ञानस्य एव परेण स्वयं प्रकाश प्रकाशस्य समानाधिकरण नित्यत्वम् उच्यते इति. Okay, Shruta Prakashikakara is saying Mrit with reference to the Ghata, etc. Mrit is Satya, Mritika ityeva Satyam, like that Shruti also is saying, correct? So this Mritravya is Nitya, but still the Mritravya as Ghata is Anitya because the Ghata Avastha changes because Mrit can be Ghata, it can be in the state of Ghata or it can be in the state of Churna, which is powder, or it can be in the state of some other whatever form, correct name and form. So the states of existence of the clay keeps on changing, even though clay is nitya. From the standpoint of these states, it is anitya. Okay, so gatadi avastha mrit. So the mrit in the state of gata, etc. It is anitya. Like that, jnana is nitya. Jnana dravya is nitya. but then the smriti with reference to the avastha, correct? Anubhava avastha, if you take, it can be either memory or pratyaksha, direct cognition, or it can be cognition through anumana, etc. Like that, different types of anubhava we talk about. So this anubhava avastha jnana is anitya. Why can't we say that like this? The Sutta Prakashikakara says, and therefore in this manner what idrisha anityatva jnanasya eva parena swayam prakashatva samanadhikarana nityatva muchyate. So in this, like this anitya jnana only is revealed by the param, whatever, for them also param brahma is Vishnu and all that, who is Swayam Prakasha, okay, and that Swayam Prakashatvam is there only in the Paramatma, according to them, and who is Nitya. In fact, from this Sutta Prakashikakara is telling whatever we are telling only, okay, he is not saying anything different. So this is what he is saying, okay, as though opposing us. So for this, Bellakonda is saying Atra Uchyati. So with reference to this, what do we say? Aho, aha, what a great thing you have said. Shrutam Prakashika Karasya Prajna Atishayaha. Wow, his great intellect, he is saying. Yada Avastita Advaita Mata Pratikshepana Ashakkataya Vidya Bhutam Kalpanam Advaite Nipatya Tadhushitavan. See, whatever the Advaita Siddhanta we are saying, they are not able to oppose that. And therefore what? But he is raising some false or whatever we call straw man argument, correct? He imagines something as though we are saying, and he negates that and thinks that he has now negated us. Okay? So we also don't say that Gata is Nitya. We are not talking about Mrid Avastha as Nitya, correct? We are only saying Mrid is Satyam and Gata, etc. are Nama Matram, which is what Upanishad itself says, correct? It is all Vacharampanam, Vikaro, Namadeyam, Mritika Ityeva Satyam. So we are not saying anything different from that. So therefore, basically, you are only putting up a straw man and knocking it off and claiming victory. That is not proper. So the rest of the arguments we'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद.